Yo, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jared Henderson. I'm one of the co-founders of the Obsidian Project. I am joined today by two fantastic, incredible storytellers. I cannot wait for us to get into this conversation. Before I start, I want to make sure that I shout out Mr. Dudley Brooks, one of the other co-founders for the Obsidian Project, and also Miss Denise Keenan, who helped put this together. This is our second episode of season 1. I have two fantastic storytellers with me. I have Mr. Bruce Talamon and D. Stevens. Let me tell you a little bit about these two men before we get started. The photographs created by D. Stevens have taken him all around the world many times over, from war-torn Beirut to tension-filled streets of Belfast to the drought-plagued faces of Haiti. For 3 decades, Stevens' powerful imagery has propelled him to expand boundaries as a communicator, documenting indicators of our times. As an advertising key art photographer, Stevens has photographed over 40 movie posters. We're going to show you some of those today. He has been a unit stills photographer on over 25 feature films since his first movie, Boys in the Hood, in 1991. Shout out John Singleton. Others have included What's Love Got to Do With It, Menace to Society, Tuskegee Airmen, and Set It Off, one of my favorite movies, among others. Stevens received the prestigious Hollywood Reporter Key Art Award as a photographer for the Best Drama Poster in 2001 for Love and Basketball. Stevens was raised in Compton, California, and educated at the UCLA, Columbia, and at Columbia Graduate School of Journalism Television Institute. What's up, Mr. D. Stevens?
Hey, it's there, man. We're all here.
I'm excited.
See my good man, Bruce Talamon.
Bruce Talamon. Bruce Talamon is a photographer who grew up in South Central, the neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. His photographs catalog the journeys that have taken him around the world. In 1971, while on foreign study, he bought an Asahi Pentax camera, which changed his life. From 1972 to 1982, he photographed the music scene in Los Angeles, documenting soul, R&B, funk, and jazz. In the 80s, he was contract photographer for Time magazine, and for at least 45 years, he has worked in the film industry as a motion picture stills photographer, shooting movie posters and publicity projects for feature films. In 2018, Taschen Books published Bruce W. Talamon Soul, R&B, Funk photographs from 1972 to 1982, a collection of his music photography. His most recent project was the 2020 Universal Pictures film and poster for News of the World, starring Tom Hanks. What's going on? How you doing, Mr. Talamon?
How are you?
I'm good, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope our conversation is as raw and honest as we've had off camera. These two are fantastic in what they do. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you have comments, definitely put them in the chat below, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, on the website. Hey, Mr. Herndon, he says hello.
I'm getting some technical glitch.
It's all good. We can hear you just fine. But I want to open it up to you two. And I want to kind of start from the perspective of what is a unit stills photographer and how you got started in this business, in this industry. We talked a little bit about, for each of you, like your first kind of moment that got you into the industry. Just really quickly, tell us how you got started in this business. I'll throw it to Bruce.
Okay. Well, the first idea that I had that you could work on movie sets was when the guy that basically got me into photography, Howard L. Bingham, that's for those of you who would look him up, it's Bingham. Very, very important photographer. Howard went on to do things with Muhammad Ali as his personal photographer, but he had this other life as a unit stills photographer. And so the first time I really understood what that was when he called me up one day and he says, "What are you doing?" And I, meet him on the corner of some street in Los Angeles, and we drive to Burbank to Warner Brothers Studios. And there on what they call the Warner's back lot was a film crew. And actually the film crew had pulled back and they were waiting as the director and the actors were working out a scene for later that evening. And they had the director of photography up there and he was, basically positioning his lighting, and the actors were Jason Robards, Dustin Hoffman, and a guy named Robert Redford. And next to them was Howard Bingham, documenting as they sort of walked through and choreographed the scene. And Howard did that was for the movie All the President's Men. And Howard also did a number of Robert Redford movies, and also movies for Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. But that day I saw him basically doing, all this behind the scenes stuff, the things that you don't see. And that was the day that I said, oh man, I want to do that. And also the way that he carried himself, the way that they deferred to him. And there was something really wonderful. And what he was doing was creating a visual record and a visual image of what went on during the filming of that movie. So that was my first time.
That's fantastic. How about you, D? What turned you on to the idea of becoming a unit still photographer? And tell me your first experience.
Well, I was at UCLA, and I was in the physics department, and they had like Bruce Pentek's HA100, and I was picking that up around campus, and I ran into a friend of mine who was actually the editor at the Normal newspaper, which was the Black Student Union newspaper, and I knew him from Compton. He said, "Hey, can you take some pictures for us?" I said, "Sure," but so I did, and became the photo editor of that, and then later the Daily Bruin, and then later an AP Stringer. But I too was influenced by Howard Bingham. Actually, he came on campus covering at that time, I think it was Muhammad Ali, and I think we were having the march in Watts, and so I trailed after him. He started showing me all the what really turned me on was seeing these great proof sheets of all the stuff he was shooting. And then I went to a set that he was doing. And again, I deferred to him watching. This is fascinating. But I was basically geared for journalism. That was my whole scope of that, and also science. So those are the two things I did. But I was very impressed the way Howard carried himself, how the crew deferred to him, how much respect he had, and how he was dedicated in getting documented this thing. And that so from then on, one thing led to another. I stayed in journalism and wrote articles about Rochelle McGee, the Soledad brothers. I wrote the story on the Soledad 3, and did John Couchet and George Jackson, and the third one. And one thing led to another. The next thing I found myself was in England doing tech advising for the death of George Jackson, and the article came out in We Magazine, also in LA Times, West Magazine, but I ended up staying in England, working for Newsweek, freelancing for Newsweek for years, actually, after that. So that got me into covering the incidents in Belfast and Bloody Sunday, and going to Uganda and covering what Idi Amin was doing in Uganda at that time. And so I was on a fast trail. I was just traveling. I was meeting Prince Charles. I was like going deep mines. When you work for Newsweek, it's like, whoa, you're here one day and you're somewhere else. And the only time you see your magazine is on the airplane. That always excited me. Oh, yeah. My writer would say, hey, this guy just took this picture of Idi Amin or this and that. I said, oh, this is cool, And so I stayed there for a number of years.
Most definitely. I really appreciate that, because in learning a little bit more about you all and talking to you both, it's just funny how paths kind of cross and miss each other. Bruce and I were talking about his what was it? It wasn't archery. What was it? It was his love for a sport that almost got him at Arizona State, which was my alma mater I went to for undergrad.
It
archery.
Was archery that I was talking about. I mean, that was one of the things that I was really interested in when I, got to, when I, came to college. And, it's one of those things I had picked up as a Boy Scout. But, and I was going to, like we had said when we were, like I had said when we were talking, I was going to go out to Arizona State. And it just happened that Whittier College came calling at the same time. And that's why I ended up there. You know, I had thought about UCLA. I didn't think I was, quite frankly, ready for UCLA, but because it was a huge campus. And so, you know, if I'd have either gone to UCLA or if I had gone to Arizona State, I wouldn't be a photographer today. So there you go.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring it up is because I think it's fascinating how your journeys can start in photojournalism, how your journey can start in a different study altogether, and then kind of bring you back towards this thing that has now sustained your life and it's sustained your career, which has now been, you know, these brothers, I'll say it like this: any movie that you've seen that you really love, especially those dealing with Black culture stories, these brothers have been involved in it. And it's actually very fascinating to go through the work, because it's a memoir and an encyclopedia of just really dope work, and that's still being done. And so I want to bring up some of the work and kind of have you guys talk through it. I'm going to bounce back and forth between slideshows so that we kind of have everybody engaged. And again, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. But I definitely want to have us start to look at some of this work and talk about it. So D, you were talking about some of your early work in photojournalism and how that's kind of inspired you. I'm going to click through, but if you want me to stop on anything, y'all, please let me know so we can talk about those things.
One of the classes I do a lot of lecture, and one of the classes I was lecturing at, I sort of had a setup where I excite them by displaying pictures of artists they know, Ice Cube or any number of Halle Berry, whatever. But then I lead them into photojournalism. And so this is one class I was teaching, and there you see Bill Duke in Menace to Society, and I got in trouble. This is obviously a real shot. This was one of the pictures of the year for Time magazine on kids who sell crack. And but it's fun to see kids go from seeing entertainment and then seeing real shots. And so I have a great deal of respect of what imagery can happen. You know, like this little kid was 13 years old, and he owned 2 cars, and he was selling dope in Long Beach. And I have to catch him on the out in the street. And then later on, I ran into him in the police department, and go to my editor at the time and say, "Listen, I found this kid. I shot him on the street selling dope, and now he's been arrested. And can we follow him through?" So we followed him through the whole process from incarceration to jail. This is Los Padrinos. And then Time actually helped him get a scholarship to finish school. And he was 13 years old, making good money, having 2 cars, lots of girlfriends. And it was just fun to shoot him in the street and see him. And my magazines I worked for have been very generous in terms of supporting me, helping back after we do a story. You just don't leave them out there, and that's it. And so a lot of South Central stuff, a lot of stuff I've seen in the hood, a lot of stuff. Now, this was a Klan story. I did a Klan. I was in D.C., and across the desk, the assignment desk, came a story about the Klan was moving from the South to the North. And they had invited journalists. So I called them the Grand Cluck Cluck and said, I'd like to come out and cover your story. I'm with AFP, Agence France Press, and they said, "Oh my God, we're being covered internationally." And at the end of the conversation, the gentleman asked me, he says, "Mr. Stevens, can you do me one favor? Please do not send an Asian, nigger, cross nigger, or Jew." I said, "I'm coming by myself." So when I showed up, the whole place went freak. It was very tense. And I had to sort of sneak around getting the shots, and I actually got a Klan burning a cross. And I was wearing a fatigue jacket with, 3 Nikons, very nervous, sweating through the fatigue jacket, and left with the chant of "Kill the nigger, kill the nigger." So I was very happy to get out of that way. This was a story we did on Death Row for Time magazine. And this was the first execution after they reinstated the death penalty. And so got a chance to go in there and talk to the gentleman who was being executed at the time. And it was moving. This is Tookie. I was asked to illustrate his book for Life in Prison. Very strong person. One thing that amazed me about Tookie and what his story did was get out to school. So I went into a school where they were broadcasting Tookie's live feed from San Quentin Prison out to homerooms. And I was seeing kids crying and upsetting. But the thing that moved me the most was sometimes you run into young people and they say, "Mr. Stevens, I always say, don't call me Mr. Stevens, that's my dad. But nonetheless, I said, one thing is, please, he was asking me, I want a funeral just like that. I want a funeral just like that. The kid is like 10 years old, 12 years old. And so I knew something. And I was covering war zones in the world. And I come back home and the same thing was occurring locally. So that flipped me out, a lot. And at this time, I was still on the point where I wasn't shooting movies, so yet. And then when I was covering a story that Bruce and I worked on, or a book we did called Songs by People, which Dudley was one of the editors on. And they asked me to, they wanted to add my thing. And they said, hey, okay,
just happen to have
that.
I have to. I'm still waiting on. I couldn't get your book, Bruce.
All right, we love
your book's not in stock till February. I have to go back and get yours.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good effort, and more importantly, it brought a lot of Black photographers of color together, and we worked as a union. And at the time, I understand they didn't realize I was Black, so I was working for Time. And someone said, "Oh yeah, he's a brother." Blah blah. So I was very enthusiastic until they said, well, you're covering the same stuff you did for Time, the gangs and drugs and yada, yada. And I said, I'll do that with one condition, because I met this young brother who was doing, who I met at the Black Journalists Association at a picnic. He was eating everything he could eat. And he was bragging about how he's going to do this film, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, what is it? And he says, Boys in the Hood. And I said, well, this project really isn't addressing film and isn't addressing those things. But I said, and the one thing they didn't want to do was having filmmakers. The one person they put in there was not Andrew Collins, but the other brother. And I said, can I put him in there, because he's doing, he's doing a story about the hood, and if you let me do that story, at least put him in there, I'll do it. And so Steve Nicolaitis, who was the producer for Boys in the Hood, brought me in, kept offering me more money, and I said, wait, this is interesting. So I go back to my editor at Time and said, listen, I can make more money on day rate than you guys give me for a month, and plus they feed me too. So obviously, I just took that job and migrated into doing film work. And then one thing after another, Arnold Draper, and I've seen his name, as Bruce and I both know these people, because Time and Newsweek were competitors. So sure. Draper was with Time, and other people with Newsweek, and you sort of didn't at that time, you didn't mix them together. So one week sure. I'm working for Time, next week I'm working, but I was always more or less aligned closely to Newsweek. But so anyway, so that's story. So that's how it got me started.
That's something that I really appreciate about your conversations is I see a comment in the chat right now talking about the inspirations, where you draw your inspiration from, and Dee was telling me a story about Gordon Parks, who he affectionately referred to as Pop, and talking about his his demeanor and how he carried himself and the breadth of his work, right? Not just a still photographer, but fashion photographer, filmmaker. And so when I look at the work that you all are doing, it's really fantastic and incredible. Mr. Talamon, I want to make sure I go through some of the pieces of your work as well. And so I'll flip through it, and if you need me to stop, just let me know.
Okay. Well, the thing that you have up on the screen right now is very important to me, and that was told to me by the picture editor Arnold Drapkin in 1984, and it was really simple. And when you think about it, as a new photographer, as a mid-career photographer, that's the thing that resonates. There's no excuse for not coming back with the shot. You can make an excuse, but I guarantee you will not be invited back later. Okay. This is the young photographer as a tour photographer for Earth, Wind and Fire. This was in 1980. This was in Mexico. I did 3 world tours with Earth, Wind and Fire. I went around the world 3 times with him. Maurice White liked me, and he liked what I did. But before, when I was doing that, I was also, doing movie stuff. So the next couple of things that you see, this is me sitting in a Bell Jet Ranger on one of the first big action movies I did. We're getting ready to take off, and I am strapped in, and scared the hell out of my mother because she came to the set that day. So she was a little shook. But you go through and you'll see, you just start flipping through. This was a movie called Blue Thunder. And, I love the problem solving. And, I mounted a camera on the tail of the copter, fired it, remotely. So continue. Yours truly again with a 4x5 shooting plates. The director, John Badham, took that photograph. Continuing. And, one of my action movies, this is in Prague. This is Wesley Snipes, also known as Blade. And I did 2 Blade movies. This one, we were fighting vampires in Czechoslovakia. Laika. And here's another action hero, just to mix it up a bit. Pee Wee Herman. I always like to throw Paul in. Very supportive, great actor, great friend. We had a lot of fun. I did a movie with him called Big Top Pee Wee. Moving on. Do not drop that 5-pound camera on the $20 million actor. Next.
I know there's a story behind that though.
There is a story. And
there we go.
Okay, and I'll tell it in a second. This is an action. I was on the action unit for the last Indiana Jones project. This is shot with a long lens to stack everything up. That car wasn't as close as it looks. We shot this on the at Marshall College, which is the fictional home of Yale University. And Shia LaBeouf dragging out of there with Harrison Ford on the back of his motorcycle. Continuing. This is why I said don't drop that 5-pound camera. This was on the Wild Wild West. I was shooting on the action unit, and Will Smith was going underneath a train. Well, there's no room for the photographer. So I had to mount my camera onto the actual the actual Panavision camera, and again fire it remotely and come up with the shot. And now on this particular case, I blurred it by there's no Photoshop. I slowed the shutter speed down, and then so you can see action, you can see movement as he's sliding along. Moving on. This is one of my rigs, where if you look up in the right corner, you'll see a Nikon D200, and I built a little platform for it, and you'll see I have a safety cord, because the worst thing in the world is to have something fall on somebody. Again, you will not be invited back. And quite frankly, when Steven Spielberg turns around to you and asks, "Did you get the shot?" there is only one answer. This is a jump by Harrison Ford's stunt double, and the trucks were running at speed, and again there was no room for me, but they expected to see something at the end of the day. So there you are. Moving on. Ashley Judd and Morgan Freeman. They're on they're in a car, but the car is on what they called a jig, J-I-G, and it will bump and turn and flip, and so I mounted my camera in the inside where I could get them as the accident happens. So I love the problem solving. Continuing. But I also do portraits, and this is Morgan Freeman. He spent all day in water up to his knees. It was a heist movie. I don't remember what it was. And no, I lit this, Fred Sweets. I brought in my crew, and it was great. He comes in, I had 5 minutes And he just said, "What would you like me to do?" And I said, "Well, you look wet, so just look at me like you're pissed off." And there we are. He was wonderful to work with, is wonderful to work with. Moving on. We have another action hero. This is Tom Hanks. I've been fortunate enough to do 3 movies with Tom. This was with Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts. And this was, on a motorcycle, on a little scooter at the end of the movie, Larry Crown. And this actually became one of the inspirations for the poster, for the key art. And I've been able to shoot a lot of the key art, which is nice. Moving on.
One of the things I wanted to ask is, tell us about what is key art. Let our audience know what is key art and why it matters to have that versatility.
I'll take a shot at it and then turn it to D. Okay, these 2 shots, these are going to sell the movie. These are going to, and back in the day, they were much more important because you didn't have the electronic press kit, the EPK, right? You didn't have the behind the scenes where folks would use what's that? I'm trying to think. I'm going blank with Mario Lopez. And they come out and they talk about who's so and so's next movie, and they get interviewed. There was none of that. So the stories in magazines and the posters became what what were referred to as this thing that you did, and it basically tells a story. This is the latest poster that I did, and you had, although I will say, you normally had to light it, but the light was so pretty. I was 3 months in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the light is just different there. I mean, all I used was a bounce card, okay, and they're 2 separate photos. I used this to show. I threw this shot into my Photoshop, and so I said, well, let me use this as a framing device. The Photoshop. This is basically all natural light of our lead actress Helena, and I think it's Helena Zinkham, and but just look at the light; it's beautiful. And sometimes we have to bring light, and then as Dee will tell you, sometimes you gotta just go with what's there because you don't have the time. You got to get it and get out. Lastly, I just want to say, and you got to make friends with the camera crew. This is a steady camera operator. I learned how to dance with the steady camera operator a long time ago. You don't want to hit him. You don't want to jostle him. That rig, weighs a couple of 100 pounds, and they're running and dodging and jumping and doing all this stuff. And the last thing you want to do is get tangled up because you will be kicked off set. So, this fellow, James Goldman, great Steadicam operator. But these are the things that still photographers do. The last point I was going to make was I did move to the mirrorless cameras on this movie. And Dee and I, would love to talk about that as far as, because you have to shoot silently. And so we would have these huge boxes, which were called blimps. But yeah. Dee, take it from here. Here's the handoff.
You're saying so much, man. It's all true, everything. And making friends with the crew, making them your partners is mandatory. So you got to really do this. I give you an example. We were shooting a movie up in Comanche, Washington called Surviving the Game. And this camera had set up the tracks. They bragged about how it's going to be the longest track in history. So it was like, 300 feet, and they had to run along with it, chasing Ice-T, running along the track. And that day they had Entertainment Tonight out with us. So they were running, keeping up with Ice-T, running down this long track, and it was all uneven. Everything was going wrong. And the Entertainment Tonight was at the end of the track, and they're charging it. And as they're charging it, they can't stop it. And literally, they ran over the entertainment crew at the end, and everything flipped out. But and the next day, the camera rental house flew up to Seattle and said, "This is a third rig you've lost." So I mean, but it was a great, for me, it was a great shoot, good entertainment. But at the end of the day, is you got to work with the crew, and you got to work with the actors. And they got to know who you are. They got to trust you, because you're going to ask a lot of them. I mean, one of my big incidents was Tuskegee Airmen. And I had Lawrence Fishburne and all 4 or 5 of the main crew running at me in over 100 degree on the ground tarmac. And they're charging with full uniforms and sweating. I could see the sweat dripping off of them. I said, do it again, do it again. And then I felt hatred. I mean, literal hatred. They were looking at me with laser eyes. Oh, shit. What do you mean we got to do it again? Why do we got to do it again? So anyway, they did it the 3rd time. 4th time, I got everything I was looking for. I said, thanks, So Lawrence was making picture approval in his trailer, and the editor came in and said, "Oh, Lawrence is greasing out all those pictures." I said, "You got to be kidding!" So I went over there with a baseball bat and said, "Wait a minute, this was too hard." So anyway, the pictures came through. We had all 4 guys running at it, and they used a double spread on the laser disc, and it became one of the key art pictures that they had. That same movie, another movie, Truman, for HBO. I walked on the set, and they wanted me to shoot. Special requests come in all the time. So the first day on the set, they said, "Oh, the paper's got to run this Sunday a shot of Gary Sinise for for the cover of the magazine." Okay, so I tell the first AD, who doesn't know me from Adam, I said, "Listen, I need literally 2 minutes to shoot Gary." I set up three setups, and he says, and the first thing I look at you, there's no way you're gonna get 2 setups in 2 minutes. And I said, "No, trust me." And so I was able to set up the lights, pre-lit and everything. And when you're saying set them up, you're setting up one section where they can walk 15 feet to the next setup, and the lights are already preset. The lights are dying down, whether you're shooting a high key or you're shooting straight forward, whatever. So Gary gets in front of one, boom, knock out the shot in less than a minute. Okay, and I decide those 3 setups I had made, I was going to shoot something dramatic rather than shoot the straight on, which I knew my editor would be looking for. But anyway, so I shot high dramatic, high key, and the shot came out. My editor gets it in New York, says, "D, why did you just do this one? Why didn't you get the other one?" I explained to her I had a 2-minute thing. I didn't want to blow it, and I decided to really concentrate on the high key. So I shot the high key. Next day in the paper comes out, full page cover story of Gary Sinise with his high key light. I was beautiful, and then all of a sudden the paper decides to give us the cast and certain people the plate that they actually made the high key from for the paper. Oh, and so my editor and I have the plate right here, the tin plate, and so they gave it to the Truman family, the Truman Library, and the Truman Library called me up and said, "Where did you get that shot from our library?" I said, "Nope, no, that was actually on the set." I mean, and so anyway, so I got these 3 things from you. I called my editor and said, "By the way, they used it as the lead picture for their magazine. They also made a copy of it and everything." And they couldn't do anything more now, could they? I said, "No." And so it was funny. So we had a good job. But part of it, what Bruce said was very true. We think of ourselves as problem solvers. You give me a problem, my job is to solve it. My problem is to make the most dramatic light, the most dramatic scene, and the most high feeling I can get to. I wish I shoot with emotion. I feel, and like Bruce, we all are influenced by our early editors. I have a shout out to all the great editors I worked with. But one, like he was working with Drapkin, and I got a story about that, but that's another story. But I was telling you earlier about Tom Moore, my first editor at Newsweek, who was crippled, blah, blah. When I was in London, this is how far back we go. We used to communicate a lot by telex. And so I'm in overseas, and I said I couldn't get the picture out, couldn't get the pouch out. And he says, and this was on executions in Uganda. And he says, "You hire a plane." And he gave me this very thing in the telex. He says, "Listen, death is not a good excuse for not getting a great shot." He says, "If you're going to die, you better have a goddamn good shot in that camera." I mean, that'd be embarrassing. Right? Out of focus, bad composition, that's no excuse. He says, so I live by that model, and I still carry the my gnome. my homage to Tom Orr, which is this guy used to always put on my editing box and was like screaming at me, get the shot. That's not an excuse for not getting the great shot. And so I hold that to Tom Orr, who has long since passed, but he was one of the great editors at Newsweek forever. And
speaking of problem solving, one of the questions that I always have to ask is, like, we always talk about, we're in the age now of talking about representation and diversity and equity and inclusion. Mm-hmm. And Fred had a really fantastic question. What's up, Fred Sweets? And asking, like, how many folks on set look like you? And then even just beyond that, how can somebody, do what it is that you're doing? Like, what are the steps?
Let me say that, or take a crack at that. Okay. The kindest thing I can say is that you see this long silence. No, seriously. When I started on television and film, when I started, the only things that were Black on these sets, I started out with ABC television, Laverne. I did Laverne and Shirley. I did American Bandstand. I ended up later shooting Dynasty and Charlie's Angels and some of those shows. And the sad thing is that, when I'd walk on a set, the only things that were Black were me and my cameras. And that is a fact. And it quite frankly, it really hasn't changed that much. I mean, you have people who are, trying to do stuff, but folks have to, because you have to understand, it's a very these film crews, they become a family, and what they do is they go from, it's almost like the circus. They go from job to job to job to job, and if they don't know you, and even sometimes when they do know you, it's almost like as somebody said, the brothers are invited, everybody else is invited for dinner. The brothers are invited for drinks. It's sad, but that has been one of the biggest problems. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about when I'd finish a movie, then, now I got to go on unemployment, and I've had a very good career. Okay. But I would have to, I didn't go from one movie onto another, but, the folks who weren't Black would be talking about, hell, the movie's half over, and they're saying, yeah, are you going to go on so-and-so's movie? I got a call from so-and-so, and they're putting a crew together. And so we have to do those same things. We have to start thinking like that, is what I would say. But again, like I said, even today, I go on a movie set. I think on on the, the movies, I look around and it's me and my cameras. The camera crew will be all white. As a matter of fact, everybody raves about Black Panther, but the camera crew was, I think there were 2 Black second assistants. And I'm still trying to figure out, and if I'm wrong, please somebody correct me. But I'm under the impression that, this movie that everybody is just raving about, they could have done a little better. And but we have to do that. There's a lot of Black filmmakers out there who I have heard say, "Oh, I never knew that there was such a thing as a Black still photographer," and that's troubling. Okay. Because we've had guys in the union going all the way back to the first one, who was a fellow named Adger Cowens, and Adger Cowens was doing. He just did a little movie called On Golden Pond, okay, with Henry Fonda and Hepburn, or after that he did Al Pacino's first big movie, which was I want to say Panic in Needle Park. So we've been there, but it has been a hard road to hoe.
D, let me ask you this: what is the solution? How do we get more folks in the pipeline?
I don't know, but I know I'm going to say that Chad Bosnick shot his two first movies, or first ones of note. That was 42 about Jackie Robinson, and the other movie was about Get On Up, about James Brown. Great time, was able to get him off set. We'd go on the weekends, visit Bessie Smith Museum, became really friends and everything. But I wasn't even given a call for Panther. It was amazing. I'm saying, wait a minute, what is this? This is odd. And this goes on constantly. What's the solution? Is communicating and getting the fact that we are here, not to stay, and talking like we are now. And because it is a hard business, and it is a white business, it is a racist business, and Bruce is 100% right. You go on a set, and a lot of times I see a person of color is amazingly small. Amazingly small. You may have a 90, 105-man crew, and you might see one or two people of color. When I did a movie we did in South Africa with what's her name?
Elizabeth Hurley.
Elizabeth Hurley and Ice Cube. So the New Line flew me over to South Africa, and I get on the set, and it's like the producer is actually this woman who had a claim to whatever. She was shocked that, hey, who are you? And okay, and New Line sent me over here. And what she wanted me to do was, take some personal shots of me. Can you get this? And I had to, within 3 days, I had to say, listen, I'm not here to take personal shots of you. I'm here to sell you a movie. And I said, if you need pictures of you, you should hire a photographer. And some of the crew members heard that. And after that, these are, the crew members I'm talking about, the drivers and the lower echelon, they heard that and they just like, their jaws dropped. But after that, I was given complete respect and get up. But it was amazing that you'd be in that situation where this investing this kind of money to get you someplace, and you still try to be belittled and whatever. But Elizabeth Hurley, Cube, everybody else was cool, but you still find it is hard to get that job. And I don't know what the solution is. I mean, it's like they try to pigeonhole you. I don't know. I really don't know. So I do a lot of other things besides unit photography. In fact, I don't do unit photography. Bruce and I are both at the age where we're saying, this might be, a little bit behind us. And it's sad because I really enjoy it. That's the whole point. And you get to know the people really well. And you love making great images. I mean, that's our creme de la creme, is like making great images and getting the feeling across. And I'm known as the emotional photographer. So I really get people, I want people to feel my picture as opposed to just see them. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day is like, you said earlier, I had 20 posters. So I have over 200 posters. And you take movies like Tuskegee Airmen, where they made a book out of it. You take a movie like and Bruce's same thing. We get these plums that they do certain things with. When they did, I'm at 4 or 5 books made from movies I've done. And at the end of the day that's your reward, is when you do a good job. Prison Song was an incredible movie that had Mary J. Blige, first actress, first time she acted. I mean, she just blew my mind away on the set. When she,
of course, she was on Monet.
Yeah, she is awesome. I mean, awesome. And Darnell was the director, and just a great movie. And Q-Tip was one of the producers, and he just, I taught him how to use a Leica. I became friends with them, hanging out with Fat Joe, Noriega, all those people in New York. And this movie, I shot Tommy Davidson on the East Coast, and David Lee shot Glover on the West Coast, on the East Coast. I'm sorry, right, vice versa. And we had a lot of fun doing that. Got so much controversy, and I was called for around the world about what did I think about this key art on this. And it's like they give you these things, and you're doing a good job. And they call you and say, what is your opinion as a journalist, as a photographer, but more importantly, as a person of color? How do you feel about this? And how do you feel the emotions you created? I wanted to shake people up. So I had a good time doing it. And at the end of the day, it's because it did create controversy. So a lot of the movies I've done has created controversy. Tuskegee Airmen was a phenomenal thing. And I got to give a shout out. This was an interesting movie because I shot this on set of the 300 thing, and so Disney had they did the key art poster, and then they started using this as key art and as a poster. So the Wild Wall, people pick posters on the street, kept requesting this poster, and Disney had never had a black person on a poster before. So they just were shocked. Oh my God, we got a black person on it, and it's actually more dominating than not. But the art director called me up and said, oh, we were talking, and he says, damn, I can't do anything with that shot, D. He says, it's perfect as it stands. So there's nothing I can do to create it, enhance it, or put anything on it. And that, again, works to me. It's like, okay, I got the moment, I got the effect and the feeling. And it again, when you go overseas and you see these posters hanging on front of the theater, and I mean, it just makes you feel good. This is the movie in South Africa with Ice Cube, the grit and the nuance of New South Africa was awesome. I mean, Transkei, all the we had 4 or 5. And New Line asked me to set up 4 key art shoots in different locales. So I had to shoot in Johannesburg, the city, the gambling city, and each time you had to set up these huge studios and get the shot done. And again, all the crews got to be with you in your corner. They have to make it. I mean, the shot I had to do of Get On Up was. We did that in a hangar, and again, I was keeping the whole crew waiting because, and I told my producer, I said, listen, I get this shot done within 15, 20 minutes, and okay, and they went at 4 or 5 changes of clothing. Okay, so we start shooting it, and the producer's seeing what I'm doing. She just holds back the whole entire crew, says, okay, stay back, as we end up shooting 4 or 5 complete changes of clothing and knocking the shot out, and it was like, and then the whole crew came in and completed the movie. But that was, again, they saw what was putting together, and Chad was a phenomenal actor on so many different levels. He had put his whole 9 yards into it. And this movie I didn't shoot unit on this, but I shot the key art with Love and Basketball. This won the key art award for the Hollywood whatever that organization's called. And again, so we had 4 setups already made, and we went from one to the other. And it was that time, I think it might have been the very first one that had a person of color winning the Key Art Award for drama poster. So that was awesome. And Michael Epps and Suchene, I mean, they were just phenomenal. Since not knowing them, how cooperative they were. But then you have to hire, when you do a key art, remember, you're responsible for hiring the makeup, the wardrobe. I mean, whether you hire them or get them or whatever it is, or the location. So you have to do all of this to make it work. So it's like, and Omar wanted to not have to walk more than whatever close to. So we had to tear down an entire fence on Crenshaw High. And so his trailer could be parked right next to the location. And we got our 4 shots in, or actually more, but it was like, it just turned out really, really well, all things considered. And that movie, it's so, the emotion on that movie was so powerful, and everywhere I go, I mean, people still talk about that, and it's like, and yet I approach Shanae sometimes at a party, she doesn't know who I am. It's like, okay, you're sort of invisible, but that's not why you're doing the shot anyway. So you're not glamorous, you're not, the glamour photographer, whatever their names are, but
it is Valentine's Day weekend coming up. I'd be remiss if I didn't show this poster because it's such a classic. Gina Prince by the Wood. And that brings me to a point. Like, people are going to print this poster for decades to come, right? And one of the things I'm curious is about how you make a living off your work. Not just that one-time contract, right? Not just that one-time gig, but how do you continue to gather resources for the work that you've done?
Well, I'll say this about that. First of all, you've got to understand there's basically 2 different things going on. When you're working as a contract photographer, or as a freelancer for in journalism, or whatever it is you're doing, that's you own the copyright to that. And actually, as anybody will tell you, since the 1978 copyright law went into effect, as soon as you click that shutter, you own the photograph. Now, that means you can be paid, you can license your work, and for a shot that you did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you can get paid for that. The movie stuff, we get basically, a particular fee, and then that's it, because you end up signing what's called a work for hire agreement, and the copyright goes to your employer. Like in my case, it would have been Universal. So Universal owns that, but they pay you very, very well. And in the union, I mean, okay, here's the poster I did for Beverly Hills Cop 2 with Eddie. I've got this is Taylor Lautner. Somebody's got a phone ringing. This is Taylor Lautner and Lily Collins on one of John as a matter of fact, on John Singleton's last feature. This was called Abduction. We went to Pittsburgh to do that. And he and I had a great time. This is work I was doing for the key art for the poster for what was that? It was a Paramount picture. I'm thinking. It was a heist movie with Charlize Theron and others. But I wanted to show, like, here's you can see if you look in the corner, that's the frame I chose, and that's it blown up. This was something, again, this was filmed, so this was not about Photoshop back then. And so how do you get the movement? Well, a good Photoshop guy can do it with 3 clicks. This you got to do in the camera, and low shutter speed, and I pushed the zoom and did it the old-fashioned way, like Fred Sweets would. But anyway, moving on. We got any more? Hello. One of the things I was going to say was pay attention. It's all around you. These are the shoes and the socks of Tim Burton, the great director. We were on Mars Attacks, starring Jack Nicholson, and there's a scene. Now, remember I said you gotta run and dance with the Steadicam operator. Well, we're pulling back, and this was before autofocus, gang. So we're pulling back. The Secret Service is pulling the president. That would be Jack Nicholson, and you've got Jack Nicholson, you've got Natalie Portman, and you've got Glenn Close. And so they're pulling him, and somebody's firing at the same time. That's and so everything has to be coordinated. This guy's a catapult shot him out, and there's this huge explosion, and so you only get one shot at that. But again, Warner Brothers owns all this stuff now, so I'll never get any residuals from this stuff, right? I can use it. No, I do not own the copyright to my work on the set. But at the end, when I retire, I'll get a huge annuity. Hold on to this because I want to talk about that.
It's one of my favorites.
But this became an Ebony magazine cover, like my third, I think, cover for Ebony. You've got 3 generations of black comedy. You'll never see that again. You've got Red Fox, you've got Eddie Murphy, and you've got Richard Pryor. Tuxedos, a 1938 Rolls Royce. We're on the back lot of Warner Brothers. This was a Paramount picture, but they had the New York street, so it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I basically had to guerrilla the set. I had to take over the set. You've never lived until you've got 150 people watching you while you do what you do. And the publicity department, here's a little something. The publicity department did not understand the importance of Red Fox. Figure that out. Okay. There would be no Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy without Red Fox, as Eddie will tell you today. And I had done a number of projects for Ed, and he calls me up and he says, I'm doing this Harlem gangster movie, and I want you to shoot. Now I got to say, Eddie and Wesley Snipes would request me, and I've only had a couple of people. Tom Hanks has requested me. I've done 3 posters for him, done 3 movies with him. Eddie Murphy, I did something like, I don't know, 9 movies. I did Raw. I did
Wow.
I did Harlem Nights. I did The Golden Child. But you know, Richard, I did a movie with Richard. But this was I held them for 4 rolls of Kodachrome of Ektachrome.
That I was going to ask you that. Like, does that relationship garner you certain, benefits of being able to pose them a certain way, work with them a certain way?
Well, and you have to stage them. You know, you got to stage them. And so what we started off with was we had it started with Eddie and Richard because they're the stars of the show. And here's Red Fox, and imagine what's going on. Here's Red Fox standing off on the side, watching basically his 2 children, right? You know, I mean, you know, his offspring, his comedy offspring. He's watching them, and Eddie was very cool. I got, a couple of things with he and Richard, and then Ed says, "Come on in, Richard," and that made the shot. That opened it up. That it was delicious. And on top of that, then they started talking shit. And again, you have never lived until you've got these 3 characters, asking you if there's film in the camera, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, it was probably, I mean, I've had some great times and I've had some great shoots, but this ranks up there. And when I came back to Paramount with the stuff, the next day, the head of publicity says, "I will not be dictated to by Eddie Murphy." And I said, "Yeah, well, Ed wants this one. This is the one you can use." And it was, it was magical. It was wonderful. And like I said, I held him for, do the math, 36 images on 1 roll of film, and I got 4 rolls, and 50 millimeter and 35 millimeter. This was a 35 millimeter because I got a little bit lower. Mm-hmm. The 50, was too. It didn't give me enough. I wanted to see stuff in the background. I wanted to see the rolls. And of course, D will tell you, you're shooting, something's going to go in the toilet, and you can't stop. You've got to work it on the fly. So, and sometimes you have to make a split decision. Maybe you don't go to that other set. Maybe you stay here and you mine that piece of gold. And that's what we did. I had another setup, but when I saw them in here, that was it. And I just knew it. And, I got close-ups, I pulled back, because that's the other thing too. You got to get everything. It maybe took 20 minutes. And remember, you've got, oh God, you're probably spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a day as a producer. Ooh. So here's some guy burning up your minutes, taking a still photograph. Yeah. Sometimes they do not have charitable things to say, but you get something like this, and that's when it pays off. That's the magic. But the last part of the question, no, I do not own this. But I have it in my portfolio. People have asked me about it, and I've had to direct them to Paramount, to get a copy of it. But in the end, it's worth it. I'll get a pension. D and I will, I'm vested, and this is a union gig. What are we talking about? Guys making now, and you're talking about probably 300 a day in camera rental. You're talking about I think it's up to like $70 an hour. You work, and that's 8 hours, and then you go into time and a half, and so you do the math. Maybe you get a 10-hour guarantee, a 12-hour guarantee, depending. And you're going to work 7 days or 6 days a week. So you add that up. And remember, I said you've got $300 a day in camera rental, so that's on top of the other things. So yeah, that's where we make our money, you know, and you get unemployment, you know. So, but
and you get food too.
And they feed you, but you know, and they pay for your hotel, and they, you know, they give you a car, and it's wonderful. But again, you know, it's a very small, it's a niche thing. You know, there's not that many African American still photographers in the movie industry, but you've got some great ones. I mean, you know, like you had Adger Cowan, you know, he's retired. You had Sidney Baldwin, he's retired. John Shannon is no longer with us. Howard Bingham's no longer with him. Bill Gillum, William Gillum, who shot early stuff for Sidney Poitier. You know, Sidney got Gillum in the Union. He got Sidney in the Union. You've gotten, you know, people who are in, you know, after that. I mean, you've got Nicola Good. You've got Marie Fox, who did all that great stuff for Lee Daniels. You know, I mean, she did the Dallas Buyers Club with Matthew McConaughey. So, you know, you've got Dee Stevens. You had Eli Reed, you know, who shot with Russell Crowe and did a number. I mean, you know, he did, what was that? About the
8 Mile.
Yeah, and he shot that poster. So we've been there, you know, but you know, we could go on and on and on, and please let us move on.
Yeah, are there other up and comers that you're thinking about, either of you, that are in the game or kind of early?
Yeah, there are. I mean, there's Glenn Wilson, who just shot. I want to say it's the Black Panther movie that's out now.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Wilson has shot some amazing stuff, and this brother, you know, and I can't call him an up and comer because he's been doing it for more than a minute, you know, but he's done just some wonderful stuff. I mean, when I think about Nicola Good and her poster for Jamie Foxx with Ray, you know, I mean, so there's other people who have been doing it since we've been doing it. Like I say, I'm at the end of my career, man. You know, I've been doing this for like 40 some odd years. And
high level.
But you know, the resource we need, Bruce. I mean, I had to go to Bruce for counseling for certain things I didn't know about. He was generous with his thing. Fred Sweets. I mean, I used to visit Fred Sweets a few times when I was working for Newsweek in London. I'd drive across, and Fred would be in St. Louis, and he'd take me around, and I would shoot some stuff that I still saw today after all these years. And so we had resources that you're able to call, and I was able to call Bruce on and say, "Hey, what is this key art thing? How did I make money on it?" And boom, he schooled me so quickly that the next I felt sorry for the next producer who met me, because I just used that shit, you know.
Well, but that brings up, if I may, another question. We've got to share. Look, folks, there are no secrets. All right, so don't hide shit under here. Okay, you know, like you're gonna get something great, and I'm not gonna tell anybody. That bullshit doesn't work. Okay, it will come to bite you in the ass. All right, and you can do a quote of that for Obsidian. Okay, but I gotta say that for a long time, people did not share work. All right, and information, and we've got to share the information. We've got to, because like I said, there's no secrets. I mean, come on, we all know how to. You know, what do you need to do? You need to know your craft. You need to know also the business. But if you don't know something, then pick up the goddamn phone, call somebody. You know, people will share. They, you know, most of the folks I know, you know, are generous. You know, they're, you know, I had been off the scene doing books for 10 years when Tom called me on this movie, and I called a couple of people. And they told me, oh, no, don't ask for that. You need to ask for this, you know. And I said, you mean it's changed that much? And so that's what I mean. You know, you got to share. You got to pick up the phone. You got to ask somebody, and you will find that most people will, you know, they will do that. They will be gracious, and also that's the way, as Dee was pointing out, that's the way, you know, we forge these alliances, and we forge these friendships. And you know, I mean, David Lee recommended me one time for David Lee, Spike Lee's brother, for those who don't know. Spike Lee, Jesus Christ, Spike has a body of work that is just fabulous. And the work that he did, you want to know about photography, go check out what he did on Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Just that, okay? You know, David cooked on them, and we've, you know, when I think back to Sidney Baldwin and that wonderful shot that he did for the poster of Black Hawk Down, you know, brothers have been, there might be a few of us, but we've been doing a lot of work. Okay, we have been doing a lot of work. I'm working on a project, you know, after I get out, where I can help, you know, maybe we can celebrate some of these African American photographers, you know, who have been doing major work. So, but let's look at some more pictures.
Yeah, Dee, you were about to say something. I wanted you to continue your thought.
I don't remember what that was.
And if you don't remember it, I have a question for you.
This is off. We shot this in Canada, and so
right here.
So yeah, it was a great shooting that movie. You know, a good time in Canada. Jada and they all were fantastic, phenomenal, and
look at that. Look at that. That's wonderful, man.
Yeah, there's different shots actually. That's one. And Gary Sinise I was talking about earlier about
right.
One of the great people to work with. I mean, that movie dealing with the war period pieces. I love period pieces. I love history, and Gary just like slammed it. I mean, he'd come to set. He'd have to be, you know, he'd have to be President Truman. He'd have to be president. He would be in that role that way. So he addressed him that way the whole day.
Yes, he was the president. You know, yes.
And so, you know, but I was saying about, you know, to set it off, phenomenal movie. This had the girls were just, you believed them. And interesting enough, I was overseas when I got the call to come in and replace somebody for that movie. And my editor said, oh, you know, come back. We'll give you another ticket back to Paris and blah, blah, blah. I said, look, I'm not going to read the script. And that's the kiss of death. You tell an editor that. And it's like, no. And so every day I came to set, I didn't know what was going to happen. And it actually worked. Every day wasn't a surprise to me. But that's the exception to the rule. But, you know, and we were shooting key art on that. We had, you know, the art department brought in the door that had been shot 20 times over and brought that in to use that. So again, I set up 3 studios in a major studio, and we had each one able to go from one to another. We had to do Jada's hair, like only half braided in front. And Queen Latifah was saying, oh no, I don't like, and I'm saying, you are the bomb, you are it. You are and Kimberly Elise, that was their first movie. They were all giving out everything they had and more. And, you know, and it's fun to shoot key art because your budget is tied into advertising. So you get limos for everybody, whatever they need, you get it for them. And you're able to, you know, get the makeup people you need, and you get the wardrobes, the props you need, and it's your shoot. It's like making a mini movie. At the end of the day, and you work off comps, which the art directors or the art companies and the graphics companies design for you. So you have all these lists of things you have to shoot, how much you have to execute. So with like let's say the movie with Love and Basketball, I was given comps from 3 different art directors and maybe 70 different shot ideas. And we have to go down through which one are we going to try to execute? So we decide to execute 10 or 12 of them. And when you get those, it's like, wow, nirvana. Just feel really, I've got exactly what they're looking for. And with James Brown, they gave me, it was so narrow, they had to have Chad stand less than 18 inches from the back wall to get these shots of him supposed to be at the microphone, getting animated, and I'm shooting him with inches away. And I'm saying, damn, I wish the comps gave me some extra room. They didn't. So you know what? You make it work. The end of the day is, and I rely on the art directors that they know what they're doing and what you want to execute, and it turned out perfect. You know, it's just like, but you know, there was those exceptions to the rule because Chad was an exceptional performer, and Lawrence Fishburne is another one. Lawrence knows what the story is. He'd bring the crew together. He'd say, "This is what Dee needs. Let's give it to him." Boom, 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 and it would work. And at the end of the day, Angela, Angie was Ambassador. Same thing. Yeah. Now that's a backdrop I've used 20 times. I carry that thing with me. It's like gold, and I use that. Now it's 3 or 4 different movies, and those things come in the key art. You shoot that stuff, and she knows how to perform. I had to pull her together before the movie was finished, so I wanted to get the coat for Boys in the Hood, the jacket, and on her. So when we were shooting her key, so they rushed to make the jackets. And that's when we shot her in the jacket originally. But Boys in the Hood was a very exceptional movie. I mean, it was like the beginning of the new age of Black filmmaking. I mean, after Blaxploitation, and that it's you know, and it was like came through. Menace was I think that was my next movie or 2 movies down the road. And when they asked me to do Menace, I said, I've done that already. I'm not going to do that again. And finally they said, no, look, and I had the 2 brothers come over my house, the Hughes brothers. They come over, man, we really want you to shoot this movie. And they bought a clip of Tupac and Brenda had a baby. I said, if you guys can do that about an abortion with a hanger. And I was just floored by it. I said, yeah, I'll work on your movie. I'll do it, And that was a treat, really a treat. Those guys have so much talent in their little fingers that you just couldn't believe it. And so when you get movies that have that kind of emotional appeal, I couldn't refuse. And then of course the basketball movie, White Men Can't Jump, and that was just fun, pure unadulterated fun. It was like a party from morning to night. But that movie we lived on overtime. I mean, overtime, I'm talking about 12 hours a day forever. And it was like, your job to go to work and find a place to sleep. That was it. You couldn't, because you're so tired. And, hopefully somebody would call you before, when the thing is shooting up. I used to carry a little walkie. And as soon as the shot was coming up, I'd get up out of the trailer. The hard thing was you got to the camera truck and the DP was sleeping on one shelf. Somebody else was sleeping on another shelf. And Russell Boyd was the DP, and it was like it was like we were trading places. But my God, the overtime that came through on that were amazing. And it's like, whoa, what is this chick? And we did this when Patriot Games. I got all this flight pay, and I'm a junkie anyway. And we went up, so I got the whole crew, second unit crew, in the for overseas when they're attacking the village, and so I had a helicopter.
Let me ask you, where's this from, D? This shot of
in Jamaica, in So I Got a Groove Back.
Ah, okay. All right. That's just a great picture. I just like everything about it.
Whoopi is a doll to work with. I mean, I love her. Some people go out for crew, and she is one who will stand by. Oh, and this is Ben Rams in South Africa. I met Ben. Ben actually lives like just 10 blocks from me. And I met him in South Africa. I thought he was in Africa. He was eating chicken feet and licking it from the bottom of the feet up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy is real. Feet up there, and he has a deep resonant voice. So he's eating these feet in the stadium. This is South African soccer stadium. And so he and then who comes out? You would know this, Bruce. It was the publicist for Songs of My People. It was his wife. What's her name? Remember? She was the publicist. She comes out. Oh my God! And then we started comparing notes. Sure enough,
I'm blanking, but let's move on. I mean, I don't want to, but oh, look at that.
And this is, I have a variety of shooting. This was for underwater fashion show, so it was in a magazine, and I think there's more shots from this same shoot. Wow. And this went around the whole thing, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun to shoot. And so I've done. The nice thing is you get a wide variety of things. I was a commercial photographer in New York. I ended up buying a loft off Fifth Avenue and 18th Street. So I was shooting for Flora Corporation, for Cutty Shark Liquor. I was shooting for Ali Betty typewriters, and I mean the money. This was after Newsweek. You get this, and money was literally rolling in on carts to me. It was amazing. I mean, I would get all of a sudden I'd be getting $15,000 for a shoot that I would be begging for Newsweek to go to Warzone for $150 a day. And all of a sudden, it was a big difference. So I bought the loft and eventually sold it. And and bought a boat and moved to Paris. And Tuskegee Airmen, we set that thing up. It was like, that was a great shoot because they were real. I got to give a shout out to my man, Bill Carroll. I mean, he's a great producer, and he's like, let's make this thing work. And so I think we shot the key art back in California, but we shot most of the movie in Arkansas and Oklahoma. And you had Alan Payne, you had Lawrence Fishburne, you had Courtney Vance, who I consider one of the great actors, unabashed, one of the great actors, and he's not getting his credit. He needs to get more. And so that really worked out well. But the movie, and the funny thing was, while we were there, you had Steven Spielberg calling the hotel room, trying to get us into, wanting to know if we were availability, because he wanted to make his own movie. It was eventually came out Red Tails. And we said, oh, it already booked up. So he was trying to get that movie made. And it was like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, we're making it. What you're going to do, we're making it right now. And no, I'm not jumping ship. We're going anywhere else. But you have people, it's a business. And you're going to be prostitutes that way. But that was one of the great movies. And first time that Red Tail or Tuskegee Airmen got on the national front. I think Bruce is working on a project with that right now. And
I'm going to have to move for just a second because my gardener is here, and sure. I'm going to tell him to shut the blower down, or else you'll never hear me. Hold on, I'll be back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. D, are there people that you are interested in working with that you haven't worked with yet?
Oh my God.
Cool.
Yes. Well, I work with vendors. That was cool. There are some great directors who I would love to work with. Even I had a chance to work with Mr. Polanski in a movie called Pirates, but it never got anywhere. So we shot that in Italy. And I do a lot of specials. I get called on, and that's when they were doing. We had an assignment to go and shoot Attenborough, and he was making his movie about Cry Freedom. So I got flown to South Africa, and he was making the movie. So I shot him, and I was introduced to this young new television star named Denzel Washington. Had a TV show. So I met Denzel for the first time there. And directors, and I worked with John Scales, so I think it's phenomenal. We did that movie in Florida. We went down to Sunshine State. So Angela Bassett and I forgot the brother's name, who's an actor. But those kinds of things, historical movies, I'm always interested in doing. And I wanted to do the one about Fred Hampton. And this is Denzel in Devil in a Blue Dress.
No. Yeah. Devil in a Blue Dress.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun.
You both worked on that film, right? I know I have a photo.
Yes, we did.
And Denzel was fun to work with. And that's Jesse.
He's searching for. There you go. Right, you got it. You missed it.
Right.
And, yeah.
Bruce and I both have a very similar picture of that, because when I first saw that, I said, that looks familiar. But you shoot certain things. I had to leave, and I had my first one-man show that was created, and so I had to go to we're putting it on in Italy, so I had to get all this stuff ready to go to Italy, and that was my first one-man show, and I didn't realize how much pictures sold for it. That just shocked the hell out of me.
I was going to say, before you show that. Yep. Could you go back to the Denzel?
Yes,
please. And there. Then go one more, and you've got Don Cheadle. That's Mouse, baby.
That's Mouse.
Now, and the importance of that, though, the importance of that picture of Don Cheadle, that was something. And I gotta say, and again, the beautiful thing about this night is that D can start a sentence and I can finish it, and I can start one and D will finish it, because he will tell you, I will tell you, you gotta pay attention. It's all around you. I was doing something else. He was waiting for his scene to come up, but he was on the set, and I started to photograph him, and then he pulls out his pistol. And all of a sudden it makes, he's in character. That was Mouse, Daddy. And I would have missed it. And so what I say to young photographers, to mid-career photographers, and even the old guys too. You know, you got to pay attention. It's all around you, you know, and you'll be, you know, you'll come back with magic. So continue, please.
But within this, it's our job so hard. We have to be attention all the time. We're on set. We're responsible for taking shots 24/7. I mean, things happen around the shot, around the area, around camera that nobody else is paying attention to. Our job is to pay attention to it because we don't know where it's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to be the exciting thing, what's going to make key art, what's going to sell the picture. And that's exciting because nobody else is paying our attention. So when they say lunch, I mean, you know, lunch, forget it. I mean, we eat lunch when we can get it, but my main thing is to get the job done. And at the end of the day is whatever it takes. I mean, after hours, that's why you see us working well after a call or set. And it's like, okay, you know, if that's what it takes with Chad, on the weekends, I took Chad over to, you see it on my Instagram page. I took him to the museums of Georgia, Mississippi, and we would go out and visit Bessie Smith Museum. I'd go over to the, not Johnny Otis, but the brother had the plane crash. And they have a beautiful education. Who? Otis Redding, right. And so he'd built an airport down there. And his wife and his daughter have a school for teaching people how to sing or how to deal with soul music, and so every day is something exciting. And if you can get close friends with the actors or the talent, it is wonderful to go out with them. To go out with Harrison Ford when he's getting ready to fly or something. You know, you want to build this kind of trust up. And at the end of the day, is after the movie's over with, whether you can be friends with them or not is up to fate. But a guy I had a lot of time with was David Carradine. David was crazy. Everyone knows David was crazy. And David would do things that was crazy. And he knew I would jump at the chance to go flying with him or do anything with him. And Art Scholl was arguably the best stunt pilot in the business, who ended up dying and making Top Gun. And when David called me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You want to come up with the flying lessons with me? I said, sure. So I drove up to Malibu. We hopped in his Ferrari, drove over to the airport, and took took a Piper over to Art Scholl's classes or his hangar. We got there and I asked David, how long have you been flying? He says 30 hours. I said, you don't have license? Nope. And meantime, we've been sort of like high getting over there, and was like, whoa. But I had to mount my cameras on wings, and I could not even find the shutter. I mean, I'm kind of pointing my finger to where the shutter was, and I kept missing it. That's where my head was at. But I'm just lucky we didn't end up in some kind of field, because but that was an exciting shoot. I mean, it was doing loops. I've never done a loop in a plane before myself. You don't know what a G-force is.
No, I gotta say, see, I stopped doing that shit. Okay, I mean, but
I was high. I had an excuse. I was high. I didn't know what I was doing.
now, when you won't see me in a helicopter. I got pretty pictures to show that I did it. Now and I'm good. And also I told one of the directors, I'm good for 20 minutes now. 21 minutes, I'm gonna throw up. So I don't do any of that anymore. But Dee and I have had adventures. I think that's what we're basically saying. We've had adventures. You let me just ask, you had put up the Michael Jordan picture,
I did. I was trying to go through some of the work before. I know we got
please. I mean,
but let me go back to it.
Whoa. Okay. That was Space Jam. And Michael was nice enough to tell the people at Warner Brothers when they said, okay, we're going to bring a photographer in to shoot the book, of the making of Space Jam. Michael Jordan said, why are you doing that? Bruce can do it. And so I ended up shooting the book, The Making of Space Jam. And there you are. And I mean, and that's happened, to both of us many times. But you want to go through a couple of things and then kick it, kick it back.
Specifically wanted to talk to you about your work with Bob Marley and how that work has helped sustain your career even long after you shot it.
Sure. I mean, oh, wait a minute. But you got to, let me do this one thing. Go up. Yeah. Click on that. And
gotcha.
okay. All right. Start there. That's my work with Time Magazine. I was assigned in 1984 to the candidacy of Jesse Jackson. Then the next one, keep going. How many people know what this is? And Fred Sweets and Dudley cannot answer, and write it in. It's a film envelope, and that's the way you used to have to do it, kids. Moving on. This is Jesse Jackson on the rope line. Notice the Secret Service. Now look closer. Notice the bulletproof shield that the lead agent has over his chest. Moving on. Young black boys wanted to touch Jesse Jackson. All right. The reason that I'm showing this stuff is because the Library of Congress in 2014 bought my entire archive. The reason they did that was because they are assessing Barack Obama. They are assessing his impact, his impact. And one of the things that the head of the Library of Congress said to me at that time was, listen, if you wanna talk about Barack Obama, first you must talk about Jesse Jackson. And it is, whether you loved him or hated him. But look at this young man underneath the picture of Jesse Jackson. We were in Detroit. Look at his hand. He's these young brothers, these young boys would squirm underneath, around to get to the Reverend. The Secret Service couldn't keep them back. But it was wonderful because they just wanted to touch him. Moving on. Talking about funding your campaign. There we go. And yes, that is a Kentucky Fried Chicken barrel. And yes, that is a $10 bill. But it was quite a time. It was interesting. Now, I don't know what else you want to show, but the Bob Marley.
Yes, sir. And just, can you tell us about how, and I'll start from here and go down, but tell us about this work and how your early work has now sustained you through your career.
Okay, first of all, I own all this work that you're looking at. This is stuff from my R&B book that Tashin did in 2018. This is work. The interesting thing is, this is work at the beginning of my career. That was the Jackson 5 that we just passed. You've got Michael, you've got Jermaine, you've got Marlon. I was shooting. You got Marlon holding the set list. Go one more. Before, one of the things I like to say when I talk about the work, before Michael Jackson conquered the world, he belonged to little black girls in Gary, Indiana, and in North Carolina, and in Harlem. And look at the way they're dressed. Look at these little girls. And that was one of the things I wanted to say to the people at Tash. And I said, this wasn't going to be just a book about black guys screaming into a microphone. I do that, and I do it well, but there's so much more. And I gotta say, they said yes. Moving on. I call this shell shock. This is in the limo after the show. Jermaine's Jerry curl has fallen. And we're all crammed in that limo. And so, I think it was a 20 millimeter lens, or maybe a 24. I think it was a 24. Boom, hit it, go. Here's some slightly older young ladies. Look at their eyes. Look at the rapt attention. They're waiting at a record store in Oakland to see the Jacksons. If you can read backwards, it says, meet the Jacksons here Saturday, December 18th, 1 p.m. They had just moved, to CBS. Shaka Khan, again, pay attention. It's all around you. Those are road cases. Those are the roadie cases. So all of a sudden you use them as a prop. Moving on. Sometimes you got to solve a problem. Well, I'm on a good day, 5'7". The stage was 12 feet in the air, And so I took a monopod. I took my non-automatic focus.
Wait. One more time.
Nikon. You want to see it again? Nikon F2, and I mounted it on the monopod, and then I had a remote control firing device, and so it was like up periscope, and I pre-focused, and I pushed it right into Verdine's face. And the interesting thing is, for 40 years, I didn't know I had this picture. I almost threw this picture away. And the reason I almost threw the picture away was because old guys like Fred Sweets will tell you, or Dudley will tell you, that children, there used to be a thing called a slide, and you would have a slide holder. And the slide holder, you would run it through a machine, and you would, you know, this 5.5 feet of film, these 36 images, and the machine would chop it up, and then you would mount them. Well, it mounted over Verdine's eyes. It was mounted incorrectly. I almost, like I said, I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. And when I was working on the book, something told me, open that slide holder up, and then there it was. I had made it, and this is probably one of my favorite performance shots. Moving on.
I'm gonna come down because I know.
Okay, get to Bob. Oh well, yeah. You. Oh well, okay.
We have a lot.
Well, wait. Okay. This is the young photographer in 1979 with Robert Nesta Marley on the right, and backstage, and that's what I did. You know, you'd hang out and you'd shoot pictures. Continue, because I think there's a couple of more Bob Marley. Yeah, this was from that. Taking a spliff break, and there were a lot of those. But that's the other thing too. You're not there to party, and I gotta say, a lot of people don't understand. But one of the things I want to say is what a publicist told me a long time ago. He told me, you are not the fifth Beatle. All right, you are not the fifth Beatle. And he also said these celebrities aren't your friends. And what he meant though was you have to keep a degree of professionalism, okay? And it pays off in the end. And moving on. Bob would find a soccer ball and there was a game on, and you had to be ready. And this was Tri-X at 1600. And somebody will say, what does that mean? That means that you had to underexpose the Tri-X by 4, 8 to 2 stops, and Rodinal, and it worked. A 24 millimeter lens, and there you go. Moving on. Oh, okay, and he was generally, and I was just going to say that is the full frame of the 35 millimeter shot. Okay, and sometimes Bob was not as good with his ball control. So yes, he did hit me. Moving on.
I want to make sure that I tell you all, thank you so much for doing this, for spending time with us. I feel like there's so much work. There's such a large body of work, and I'm sorry that we're not gonna be able to get through it all. But if there's anything that you all definitely want to talk about before we dip, I want to make sure that we do that. There's just get the books, look at.
You want to open it to questions, or have we run our mouths too much?
No, definitely. If there's questions in the chat, pull them up. I will pull them up. There was a couple earlier. One of them was from D. Stevens. D. Dryer. Where are you, D? Here it is. Here's the question. What kind of adversities did you all face during your careers, and what has been your motivation to continue in the work?
Being a documentarian, reflection of history. That's what I've enjoyed most, is that actually we're witnessing history. I knew that was very special. That when you went to a place, and the question always came up, if you're not there taking an image, does it really exist? Does it really exist? So when I first did the thing in Uganda, or the first thing in Belfast, if I wasn't there, nobody else would have that story. and it wouldn't ever reach the public at large. And so I felt very, very special, very, very gifted, having the opportunity to take, and people would open up their lives to you. I took a picture of a woman giving birth to a substance abuse infant. I mean, loosely, and we called her crack baby. And there she was in the middle of birth. I mean, just like kicking, flaying, naked and da da da. And here I am taking this picture, which should be the most obscene period of her life. And yet she's given me that privilege. And then later on, when the song My People came out, and I had to take a picture back to her. I was doing a follow-up story for Newsweek. And I was so afraid that she wouldn't remember that, we actually had her sign a document, yada, yada, yada. And she came up and she said, "Oh, Lord, I've come such a long way," and tears in her eyes. And the baby had survived and was healthy. So 3 or 4 years later, that just knocks you over. I mean, it makes you feel very, very special. And likewise, going to and covering some of these, funerals or something that happens to people, and you see them in the worst time in their lives. There was a woman I took a picture in Belfast where the guards came up to their house, this woman's house, and she's holding up dried blood shirt that her son had just been killed, and she's holding this up. This is all I have with my son, and it was like, I mean, I brought me to tears right then and there. And then I shot a picture of a doomed pub that was destroyed. Middle of taking a picture down 3 doors down, that when they said how many people were killed, and out of the 6 people I took pictures of, 4 of them were killed in that bomb. And it was like, okay, if I was not there, it wouldn't exist. But yet it was there, and it was published, and it was very extremely moving to me.
One of the things I would just say is, I've always thought of myself as a caretaker of Black folks' history. All right. And we shoot, as you can see, we shoot more than, Black folks, right? Because the last time I checked, there's nothing Black about Pee Wee Herman or, Tom Hanks. But the point that I'm making is that, we are visual caretakers. We do the work. We captured those bright moments, like Rahsaan Roland Kirk, the great saxophone player, used to say. And this stuff will be there, after we're gone. And you look up and you realize that you've done some good work. You realize that maybe, your work will stand. Maybe there can be some things, and okay. So there's the older photographer now at the National Portrait Gallery in 2019, November. And that was one of the 6 Portrait of a Nation Prize recipients, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, and they used one of my portraits, and now hangs in the National Portrait Gallery. But maybe we captured a little bit of history, from the editorial work that we've done, from the movie stuff that we've done, specifically of those pictures that are also related to people of color. That's important, because there aren't a lot of us out there, who are doing that. I mean, photography is hard anyway, and African American photographers got a hard road to hoe. But we've done the work, we've done the work, and I'm excited that you guys reached out to us. Like I said, I met Dee in 1988. And were you you had just done Boys, or you were about to do Boys? Dee?
I must have been just about to do Boys, I think.
Okay. Because I had been doing stills on movie sets, and then I
heard about you. I mean, you were the man, you were the go-to man. And
I don't know about that, but
that was told, you got to go to Bruce, man. Bruce knows it all. And
well, thanks, man. I mean, but I guess what I'm saying is we just remember this, if nothing else, we did the work. You're looking at two working photographers. Okay. A lot of people can't say that. And, no grants, no teaching positions. We're out there hitting it. We were out there hitting it every day. And we were able to do the work. And that's what I'm proudest of all. And that, I could know somebody like Dee, and like I said, Howard Bingham, and, there were a number of people who have inspired me and guided me. And I'm sure, the same, I can definitely speak for Dee in that, saying the same thing. And I look at his work, on From Boys in the Hood, which was his first film, and I look at, his other, pieces that he's done. And so there's depth there. And that's all we want to do at the end of the day. So, thank you.
I have one last final question. And I want it in two sentences, because I've been instructed to make sure I leave the audience wanting more so we can do this again. The question comes from a good friend of mine. The question is, what would you tell us young Black journalists, photographers? What advice would you give us?
All right.
I think I know what Bruce is going to say.
I need to be a smart ass and say, well, if your college has a plumbing course, I would advise that. But I'd say, you definitely have to believe in yourself. A good photographer anyway has a little bit of the anarchist and oh, God damn it. I'll think of it in a while. But the thing is that you've got to be able to understand when somebody says no, that you can figure out a way to get around that. So yeah, you've got to be a little bit of an iconoclast, and you've got to be an anarchist, and you've got to believe in yourself. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, one thing I gotta say is I do have an issue with all of the new equipment. And you see some of these blogs where it says, "Oh yeah, I got the new Sony that's RSM." It's not the equipment; it's the person behind the camera.
Amen.
And this has upset me so much. When you go online, you see, "Oh yeah, this new R6 and do this." You're talking about 80,000 ASA. I mean, Bruce and I both grew up when Kodachrome was 64, then when 25, maybe 125, but Tri-X was always 100. You can push it to 200, and that's what you worked with. You had no problem. You weren't complaining. But now, if it's not 81,000, 5,000, it's like, oh, I can't take a picture. I don't know how to do this. And you got films that can hold how many shots? Well, we had to move in the day when you had to. Once you bought that film, it's your responsibility to keep it cool, to get it to where it had to be, to make sure it got shipped out. I remember renting labs in Stockholm to get my film suit because they had Kodachrome. I had to check who was the chemist on site. And what was it? It was New Line when we were in New York doing Prison Songs. I had to rent the Time Life lab and go there and stay there to 3 o'clock in the morning. The lab stayed with me. That was a challenge because they cared about images. Now it seems the bar has dropped. If people with the camera, with all the mechanics and all the things, and we all use the newest equipment. Bruce has the latest equipment. I have the latest equipment, but it doesn't take the place of taking the shot and caring about the shot. And that's the biggest gripe I have, is that you're coming up with a breed of photographers who aren't being taught the skill of the empathy of the picture, the power of the image. And there are still great photographers. Eli Reed, Bruce, and others are still there. Care more about the image and not about the equipment. So that's my only gripe, is that,
What are you going to say?
May I add one last thing, only because, Dee, you opened up something that is so important. All right, here it goes. Look, you got to understand, it's more than about Instagram, goddammit. Okay? Right. And you've got, okay, part of, or I want to add one thing, one small tiny thing, and that is, you know, you've got to be able to duplicate. So you take a good shot. Now the question is, can you do it again? And I'm not trying to bust anybody's balls. You know, I'm not trying to make fun of nobody. But like Dee mentioned, there's a lot of folks that aren't understanding the process. And I had a good friend, Jim Marshall, the great rock and roll photographer who photographed Jimmy and Janice at Woodstock. And yes, I am old. But the point is, you know, he said, you know, well, there's a lot of guys walking around with cameras. There's only a few photographers. If you're going to call yourself a photographer, if you really want to do this, yes, you can have fun. You can meet a lot of people. Everything's fabulous. But you still got to do the work. All right? And just do the work. Take the time to study your craft. I mean, there's guys like Jeff Salter, who is like a master photographer doing stuff for Sports Illustrated. All right. I look at Jeffrey's work and sometimes I want to throw my damn cameras into the river. Okay. Because Jeff is doing the work. And that's, you know, we met back at Songs of My People, but, you know, which was 1990 something. But I guess what I'm saying is, you know, all these guys knew, and you know, guys and women, because I don't want anybody saying shit about what Bruce didn't talk about. But, you know, you gotta have, you know, faith in your work. You've got to respect the craft. Please, just respect the craft. The fun will come later. Don't worry, it will. That's it.
Yeah,
gentlemen.
Right. I would like to say one final thing. Know what the zone system is. I mean, I think if people start learning the zone system, that's a good beginning, and you start to appreciate so many things by learning that one concept.
I cannot tell you how much we appreciate the Obsidian Project, everybody who is here viewing, you all for sharing your knowledge, sharing your gifts with us, sharing your experiences with us. Thank you so much. I've told you all independently, but again, thank you all so much for taking this time with us. I can't wait to work with y'all in the future and to do this again at some point with the Obsidian Project. Everybody, thank you all for joining us. I want to make sure I tell everybody that we have our next backstory talk Friday, March the 12th, where we're going to answer the question, what is great photography and what makes a great photographer? So I can't wait to have that conversation Friday, March 12th.
And Dudley, appreciate it. And Bruce,
thank you.
Gratitude, brothers. Thank you so much. Don't go nowhere. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure to share this with your friends and family. Anybody who think is interested, young photographers, please share it with them. Until next time, we'll see y'all. Take care.
is that it?